explaining how to cast a ballot. This is your chance to be a part of something bigger. Most Tennessee counties need poll officials. Your community needs you. Raise your hand. Be a patriot. Become a poll official today. Visit govotn.com to sign up.
Tennesseans love to vote early. Most Tennesseans think early voting means going to a location and voting in person prior to Election Day. In fact, 98% of Tennesseans normally vote in person. But did you know many Tennessee citizens can request a ballot to vote absentee by mail now without even leaving their home? Tennessee law provides numerous ways to vote absentee by mail. The first step is to see if you qualify. I'm going to highlight some of the more popular reasons allowed under state law to vote absentee by mail. If you're 60 or older, if you're hospitalized, ill, or physically disabled, if you are the caretaker of a person who is hospitalized, ill, or disabled, if you're going to be outside of your county during all of early voting and Election Day, if you're serving on a jury, if you are serving your county as a poll official, if you're a full-time college student or spouse of a full-time college student outside the county you're registered in, if you are serving our country in the military and are out of the country. These are just a few. You can request to vote absentee by mail today. There is no reason to wait if you qualify. To view all of the numerous reasons, visit govotn.com. For those who qualify, the second step is to request an absentee by mail ballot. To do this, all you need to do is submit a written request by mail, fax, or email to your local county election commission. You can find a list of county election commissions at govotn.com. If you choose to email the request, you must attach the completed request to the email with your signature. This lets the election commission know you are the person requesting the absentee by mail ballot. Your request must include the following: your full name, your home address, social security number, date of birth, and address where you want the ballot mailed, the election in which you want to participate. If the election involves a primary, make sure to note the political party in which you want to participate. For the August election, if you want to vote in either the Republican or Democratic primary, you must state that in your request. You can only vote in one primary. If you do not request a primary ballot, you will only receive a general election ballot. You must also list which of the valid reasons under Tennessee law you are using to qualify to vote absentee by mail. For example, if you are 60 years old, you need to write 60 years old as the reason you qualify to vote absentee by mail. And don't forget your signature. You may also choose to use our absentee by mail ballot request form available on govotn.com. We recommend including your phone number in case your election commission needs any additional information. To vote absentee by mail, your local election commission must receive your completed application no later than 7 days before the election. The 7-day deadline gives the election commission time to mail you a ballot and for you to mail the ballot back. However, if you know you're going to vote absentee by mail, I encourage you to make the request as soon as possible. Once again, to find your local election commission, visit govotn.com. When you make your request, I encourage you to take a moment to double check you provided all the required information before sending your request to the local election commission. This will help you ensure your application is processed timely and accurately. Once your completed application is received, it will be processed and the ballot will be mailed to the address you provided. Once you've received your ballot, please complete the ballot and mail it back to your local election commission. The ballot must be received by the close of polls on Election Day. If you meet the requirements to vote absentee by mail in Tennessee, please don't wait. Request your ballot today.
As me and Iva said before, we're going to have a debate. I believe I was just told it's the first debate in 20 years between a Republican and a Democrat in the state of Tennessee.
Congressional
That's
candidate.
right, yeah.
That's amazing. All right, so welcome to the congressional debate between Tennessee's 4th District candidates Doug Meyer, Republican from Winchester, and Christopher Hale. He is a Democrat from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. These candidates will be representing their party in the August 6th federal primary election. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today, and thank you, viewers, for tuning in. Let's get started. I'm going to go out with the rules here. Each candidate will have the opportunity to give a 7-minute introduction. Then we will give the candidates a series of 6 questions. After each question, the candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. Then the opposing candidate will have a 1-minute rebuttal opportunity. At the end of the questions, we will give each candidate 2 minutes for their closing statement. It is important to make note that the candidates have not seen the questions in advance. Best of luck to both of these spirited candidates. And Doug Meyer won the coin toss, so he gets to go first. Let's go, gentlemen.
My name is Doug Meyer, and I'm running for U.S. Congress to represent the 4th Congressional District. I'm a proud veteran, constitutional patriot, a true conservative, and a real Republican. My family have been Appalachian Tennesseans now for 10 generations, since the 1700s, before Tennessee was even a state. My wife is a retired teacher, and like they said, our home is in Winchester. Our son is an Army officer and a Black Hawk pilot just returned from deployment. Our daughter is in corporate IT. I spent my career pursuing organized crime, gangs, and drug cartels. In my career, I've been beat, bit, cut, shot at, burned, peed on, ran over, lied to, lied about, sued, betrayed, wrecked, and stabbed in the back. So I think I'm ready for politics. Because I'm a fighter, I'm alive today. And I'm exactly the sort that you want on your side in a worst-case scenario. And we are in a worst-case scenario because Congress is broken. The Democrats have gone insane. Whatever is sick, twisted, and destructive to our republic, they're busy shoving down our throats. And many, if not most, House and Senate Republicans are too weak and directionless or sold out to oppose anything. As a result, America is in serious trouble, and we must deal with it head on with courage, strength, and resolve. The American people are suffering through a massive conspiracy to remove the President of the United States. And this began even before he was elected, and it continues today. We have suffered through a baseless impeachment process that has exposed the corruption at the highest levels of government. Our FBI and DOJ are compromised. The deep state runs the show. Mainstream media... Sorry, I thought we were being cut in on. The mainstream media has become nothing but a propaganda machine injecting the minds of the people with poisonous doctrines and subversive agendas. We are being swamped by refugees and illegal immigrants. Our cities are in chaos, and that chaos is spreading like a cancer. Our national debt is swelled like a tick to bursting, and there is no balanced budget. We, the people, are becoming increasingly angry. And I don't know about the rest of you, but there is even talk of revolution again. That's a very dangerous thing. I'm running against Scott Desjarlais because he has proven himself to be progressively inadequate to the safeguarding of our republic. He has had 10 years to actually do something, anything. For 8 years under Obama, he was silent as the tomb while our republic was being torn apart. He's become just another echo in the swamp. Just another squish politician. He increasingly ignores the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and has betrayed we the people on core issues like the First and Second Amendments. For example, he co-sponsored H.R. 838, which was the creation of a red flag law task force on the federal level. This is a very dangerous infringement. It's what the founders warned us about. Then he voted yea on House Resolution 183, which is an intentional infringement on the First Amendment. I will remind him, as I will remind all of those in office, that it is the government which is to be restrained, not the people. Scott Desjarlais refuses to campaign or to answer the questions of the people or to engage in open debate. He relies on political influence peddling machines to get reelected every time. Hence his absence here today. He is gutless, spineless, and self-serving, wholly incapable of opposing the Democrats' traitorous insanity. So I have simply gone around him, and we arranged this very public question and answer for him. I'm joined by Christopher Hale, the Democrat that I will meet in the November general election. Hale represents the happy face of the socialist communist nanny state. In exchange for our Constitution, our republic, our rights, and our freedom, he offers to give you everything under the sun. He offers to make everything all right by spending us into oblivion. His answer to all of our troubles is to throw money at them until they will go away. But he represents complete and total destruction. He stands with the party of shameless corruption. What he wants to do has never and can never work, because it is a fantasy that has failed every single time that it has been tried. While our cities are burning and everything we hold dear is being destroyed, Hale is busy marching and protesting and holding the hands of the vandals, the arsonists, the thugs, and the murderers. He means to be a benevolent ruler, but he means to rule. And we in the 4th District are descendants of men who would not be ruled. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. I intend to eliminate debt. Quit spending frivolously. That's the only way that it can be done. If funding is not for infrastructure maintenance or homeland defense, then the answer to request for funding is no. We are beset by laws. There are far too many laws and regulations. We are talking more than 29,000 pages of federal law. Congress is being robbed. And the answer is to shut the purse and put safeguards in place. A Clean Bill Act would mean that acts must come to the vote in their entirety and dealing with just one issue, so that the pork cannot be added to everything that comes along. Term limits are an absolute necessity, now more than ever. I am in favor of a minimal federal straight tax across the board with no loopholes. I am a capitalist, but I am not a corporatist. I support the people in their desire to be productive and to thrive and prosper. But I am dead set against monopolies by super corporations that have more power than most nations and are unaccountable and answerable to no one. I am a conservative and I stand for what works and what is sustainable.
30 seconds.
As your representative, I offer service over ambition, character over status quo politics, integrity over political expedience. I promise to work with those who support and defend the Republic, and I will oppose those who do not. I will not be bullied, I cannot be bought, and I fear none but God. What our founders fought and died to establish and protect, I will never surrender. So I'm asking you, be brave, think clearly, and choose wisely.
Time. Now we're moving on to Christopher Hale.
Thank you for having me today, and I really appreciate being here. The first thing I want to note and applaud is that Doug Meyer is here. For a decade, Congressman Desjardins, deluged by scandal, has been in Washington. He took $1.7 million of your money, and all you got was a lousy post office renamed. Deluged by a 3-part scandal that too many are afraid to talk about, Congressman Desjardins hasn't shown up. We know that he dry-fired a gun on his ex-wife and shot it. We know that he pressured his ex-wife and mistresses into 3 abortions. We know that he illegally prescribed painkillers to another mistress, another woman he was sleeping with. And we know these scandals are why he is not showing up for you and your family. Doug Meyer is a lot of things. He's correct on one thing. He is a fighter, and Scott Desjardins is not. I'm a fighter too. I've spent my life standing up to the bullies and fighting for the forgotten. A native of Tennessee public schools. My opponent here today wants to get rid of public schools. I am a product of Rutherford County Public Schools. At 18, I went away to college. I got inspired by a life in public service. I went to go serve a president of the United States, and later as a nonprofit executive worked on that gritty intersection of faith and politics. Congressman Desjardins, Doug Meyer, they hold up the Bible in one hand and denigrate everything it stands for in the other. We are too nice. We are too bourgeois. Doug is right. We need to talk about the issues that matter. Here's the truth. Congressman Desjardins and Doug Meyer have one legislative priority. Doug and Congressman Desjardins want to destroy the 20th century. They want to repeal all of it. Doug does not support Medicare. He wants to take it away from you. He doesn't support Medicaid. He wants to take it away from you. He does not support civil rights. He does not support unions. He does not support the heritage of the people of Tennessee. Congressman Desjardins and Doug Meyer represent this fringe ideology. But Doug is right on one thing. He shows up, and Congressman Desjardins does not. Doug is here. Congressman Desjardins is hiding. Before this pandemic came, Congressman Desjardins, a doctor who took the Hippocratic oath to do no harm and to protect his people, had a chance to help stop this virus. He voted against the pandemic response team. When the virus came, he did nothing to help us. He didn't support President Trump's three-part program to give free virus testing to every Tennessean, to get paid sick leave so you don't have to go to work when you have the virus, and a small business stimulus to help our communities. But let's be clear. Doug Meyer doesn't support Donald Trump's three-part plan. Doug Meyer, who had spent a majority of his career collecting money from the government, I believe he actually has a pension from the police department in Georgia. Doug collects government money, and at every turn, on the right hand takes the money, on the left hand decries government. It's hypocrisy. Doug wants government to work for him and his family and his pocket, but not for you and your family. I'm different. I know how government works, and I will make it work for you and your family. To me, it's simple. There are 4 things that are at stake in this election. Rural hospitals. Doug opposes them. He wants to cut Medicaid and ensure that they all go under. 10 have gone under in the past decade. Doug wants to get rid of all of them. Congressman Desjardins does too. He wants to get rid of health care. He doesn't agree, he doesn't believe in a minimum wage. Doug thinks that you should make $5 an hour at $7.25 an hour at McDonald's, and that's perhaps too much. Perhaps you should make $5. And Doug doesn't want good jobs. Doug wants us to live in a society that no longer exists. Congressman Desjardins is right there with them. But let me tell you something. The thing that Doug is absolutely right about, again, is that he shows up and Congressman Desjardins doesn't. Doug is in a hard fight, but he is the best candidate to be the Republican nominee for the United States Congress. His opponent, Congressman Desjardins, has rigged the system. He has rigged the system through his friends in Washington and Nashville to ensure good men like Doug can't compete. So Doug's going to fight his tail off, and he might as well as win. But I want to say something. I want to make this clear. If he doesn't, to every Doug Meyer supporter out there, there's tens and thousands of you. They're patriots who love God and country, Tennessee and America. I want to look you in the eye and tell you something. If Doug does not win that primary, I am your man on November 3rd. Congressman Desjardins fights for the rich guys in the silk suits who spend their careers screwing over Tennessee families, those healthcare executives that Doug talked about that screw over Tennessee families. That's who Congressman Desjardins fights for. Doug cares about you, and I'll fight for you. We disagree on some things. I want to be very clear. I do not support a holy war against Muslims, a crusade against Muslims like my opponent, Doug Meyer, suggested we should do. I disagree. I think that's morally abhorrent. I do not support President Trump igniting the second Civil War. I think that's morally abhorrent. I think President Trump agrees with me. He doesn't want to incite the second Civil War either. I don't support shooting Palestinians in Gaza Strip at random. I think that's wrong. I think that's not pro-life. Doug supports it. And finally, I do not support getting rid of public schools because they're the indoctrination of Satan. Doug says that. I disagree. But once again, I give credit to Doug Meyer for showing up, for representing conservative principles, and to every Doug Meyer supporter who is sick of the status quo politicians, who is sick of swampy Desjardins. I am your man. I will fight for you. I will make life better for you and your family, and I'm asking for your support.
Excellent. All right, gentlemen, we're going to be going to our first question. All right, so first question, we're going to move back to candidate Doug Meyer. What do you consider the most pressing problem facing the country today? You'll have 2 minutes.
My belief is that the crushing debt we're under, we cannot possibly pay it back even into our great-grandchildren's generation. The politicians are more interested in the next election, the next re-election, instead of the next generation. We're being crushed by debt. We hear words like it's $25 trillion. It's actually closer to 40 if you do the math. But the unfunded liabilities are somewhere over $100 trillion. It is literally crushing this country. And sooner or later, it's going to do us in. So my belief is that without a shadow of a doubt, it's going to crush us. Mathematically, it's inevitable. So I have put in a place, DougMeyer2020.com. I go into a lot of my policies. Unlike my opponent, who's entitled, of course, to his opinion, he's not entitled to his facts. If you want to know what it is I stand for, what it is I stand against, you can go there. It lines it all out in detail. Much of what it is that has been alleged or merely that. Please do the homework. You'll find out that it's not so.
Excellent. Mr. Hale, you've got 1 minute to rebut.
I want to comment. I think that Doug Meyer has hit an issue. Scott Desjardins is the king of debt. He loves debt. Scott Desjardins has voted for budget after budget after budget that has drained our resources and given tax breaks and corporate giveaways to organizations and businesses that screw us over and ship jobs to China. So he's absolutely right on that. The most important issue facing Tennesseans today is health care. It's the #1 cause of bankruptcy here in Middle Tennessee.
Time. And we'll continue on. Now, Mr. Hale, you will have 2 minutes to give your answer. What do you consider the most pressing problem facing the country today?
Health care. Tennessee, the #1 cause of bankruptcy in Tennessee, it's medical bills. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, Jesus says that God will judge the nations on how they treat the sick among us. Under Doug Meyer and Scott Desjardins' worldview, we ignore the needs of the sick in our community. We say, in the words of the gospel writer, good luck and be well. This is not the Tennessee that I know. My opponent lifts up the Bible and calls himself a constitutional conservative and a biblical Christian. I don't think he's ever read the text of the Bible. The Bible tells us that God will judge the nations on how we treat the least of these. And I want to know why Doug supports ripping away health care from Tennessee families, why he thinks it's good that there should be 400,000 uninsured Tennesseans, and why he wants even less health care. Doug says health care is bad. It's not good. It's not worth investing in. He wants to take it away from you and your family. I want to give your granny her meds. Doug doesn't want to do that. He wants to say best of luck to you, and you're in my prayers.
Mr. Meyer, 1 minute.
He is, again, speaking his opinion, is not the facts. We had Obamacare, and Obamacare took the health care that we had and absolutely destroyed it. There is nowhere in the Constitution that guarantees you that they're going to take care of you like some sort of nanny state.
Doug has health care from the state of Georgia. Pension plan.
That's absolutely incorrect. I have veterans disability and I have no pension.
That's government health care.
Gentlemen?
So, bearing that in mind, again, he's speaking opinion, he's not speaking facts. The health care that we're facing today is as a result of them trying to pursue the utopian ideal. The first tenet of the religion of communism is that you centralize all health care underneath it, and see where it's gotten us. We're going to become like every third world nation out there if we go down this path.
Time. All right, let's move to our second question. This will go to Mr. Hale very first. What is the proper role of the federal government in a national emergency?
I just want to highlight something. Did you hear what just happened there? Doug Meyer is on a government health care plan. According to Doug Meyer's strange logic, government health care is the birthplace of communism. So I guess I have the nice smile, but Doug must be the Marxist here. Doug must be the communist, because Doug wants himself to have health care. And thank God you served your country. Doug wants himself to have health care, but he doesn't want you and your family to have health care. That's what we call in the Christian tradition hypocrisy. The proper role of government in a national emergency is based on the principles of solidarity and subsidiarity. I don't think the government has a one-size-fits-all solution. Obviously, what happened in the pandemic here in rural Tennessee was different than what happened in Nashville. I think the CDC social distancing guidelines that President Trump enacted were correct. I wear this mask because President Trump says we ought to. It's hell yes, you can get one on my website. Because he says we ought to, because it protects the dignity of human life. Doug doesn't support President Trump's CDC social distancing guidelines. He, in fact, says this beautiful mask right here that I use to protect my 80 to 86-year-old grandmother makes me a smiley Marxist. President Trump says it makes me a patriot. I'm with President Trump. I think Doug's wrong.
Mr. Meyer, rebuttal.
The proper goal of the federal government in any national emergency is first the continuity of the government. If we lose the government, then we lose the republic. And I remind you that the republic is we the people. Now, their goal constitutionally is to protect the people. But generally, the people are wise enough to understand for themselves what it is that needs to be done. Those who are using their minds recognize a pandemic when it's happening. They also happen to recognize when one is not happening. You don't walk headlong into a situation without some kind of wisdom. The nanny state has removed much of the wisdom of the American people and replaced it with somebody who's making those decisions for you. It's about freedom. And you are free to make good decisions, you're free to make bad decisions. They should have guidelines. But what it is that we have seen around the country, not CDC guidelines, but actually shutting down the entire economy.
Time.
As a result of that, we're being crushed.
Time. Now you'll get your chance to do your 2-minute answer.
I'm sorry?
That was your rebuttal, so you get 2 minutes.
You get 2 minutes.
If you want to keep answering the question.
Proper goal of the federal government, the federal emergency is to...
What is the proper role of the federal government in a national emergency?
First, it's to protect the republic itself, and like I said, the republic is we the people. Secondly, it is its purpose is to help the people protect themselves. Like it's been said before, I would rather live in a dangerous freedom than to live in an absolute, stable, and peaceful utopian slavery. I'm done.
Excellent. All right, let's move to, we got a rebuttal. Mr. Hale?
It's remarkable to me that on one hand, Mr. Meyer claims to be a champion of Donald Trump. He began his opening remarks talking about what he called the sham impeachment. And on the other hand, he says that Donald Trump, because he wants me to wear a mask to protect my grandmother, is a champion of the nanny state. So I'm confused on which it is. Also, I want to highlight this one more time, and I don't think he's ever going to answer this. Why is it that Doug Meyer thinks that he and Scott Desjardins should have a 6-figure government health care plan that can pay for his Congressman Desjardins elective knee surgery during a pandemic so he doesn't vote on bills? But we shouldn't have access to health care. Why does Doug support what he calls communist health care for himself and his family, but doesn't support basic access to health care for you and your family? He's never going to answer that because he doesn't have a consistent ideology. Doug quotes the philosophers, but he's never read the book. He's got the Wikipedia down, but he's never read the text.
Time. All right, gentlemen, we're going to start again with Mr. Meyer for our third question. How would you address the escalating national debt, and is it a concern?
The escalating national debt is so high and so mean and so terrible in its future for the American people that we must close the purse altogether. There is no other choice. Mathematically, any other thing simply does not add up. If we do not put a tight stricture on our expenditures, we're going down the road of every failed third world communist country that comes down the road. If we consider every time we turn around that the government's got this lovely little purse and it's full of money and we'll just keep sucking our way out of it, eventually, we're going to find out when we reach inside of this purse that there's nothing there. There's nothing there, absolutely. And this is what my opponent wants. He wants to fix everything with money. But tell you what is inside the purse. The flag of Russia, the flag of communist China. That's the way that we're headed right now if we don't fix this. We've got to shut the purse off, and we have got to aggressively go after those who keep piling pork upon pork upon pork. Pork in a bill is treason for the level of debt that this country is in. Your children's children's children can't pay this back. But spend away, my friend.
Okay, 1 minute rebuttal. Mr. Hale.
Doug opened the purse, and for some reason he didn't pull out his 6-figure government health care plan that he and his family have that I pay for, that you pay for. So Doug, if you're such a champion of small government, how about you tell the people of Tennessee that you'll reject that health care plan because you don't support government health care, because evidently your health care plan for serving honorably in the United States military is from some twisted logic formed with an intellectual without talent that somehow it's a Russian communist scheme. I think it's called basic Christian principles. I read the Gospel of St. Matthew, and it says that we should take care of those in need. This isn't socialism. I know Doug hasn't read the Bible in a while, but this is pure Christianity. I think that Doug should have health care. I think that Congressman Desjardins and Doug shouldn't vote to take away from health care from you and your family when they are sitting around with these rich, fat cat, 6-figure health care plans. But I know Doug to be a principled man, so I know he'll tell us right now, because it's now the third time I've asked him, that he'll reject that health care plan.
Time. Mr. Hale, how would you address the escalating national debt, and is it a concern?
Absolutely. The first thing we got to do is stop giving tax breaks to corporations that screw over our families and ship jobs to China. The government today is obsessed with rich giveaways that are not for you and your family. We have a congressman who voted to give $3 trillion to big corporations that ship jobs overseas, to corporations that have cut thousands of jobs here in Tennessee. I'm all for balanced budget, but I don't understand why Scott Desjardins isn't. Scott Desjardins is the king of debt. This man has spent his entire career getting rich on government. Do you know why he came to Tennessee? He's not from around here. Do you know why he came to Tennessee? He came here on a government program. Doug wouldn't like that. He shouldn't. That gives him access to poor communities so that he can get rich on Medicare and Medicaid checks. Congressman Desjardins has spent his entire career getting wealthy on government checks paid for by poor people. And he goes around, and when he gets in government, what does he do? He screws over those very same poor people. He says, I don't believe in health care, and in fact, we're not going to invest in our communities. What we're going to do is we're going to give tax rates to the rich guys, the corporate fat cats who ship our jobs overseas to China. Under Congressman Scott Desjardins' reign, the unemployment in Tennessee is higher than it's ever been since the Great Depression. That's Desjardins economics. You and your family don't get health care. You don't get good jobs. You don't get living wages. But you know what? MSNBC and Comcast get huge tax breaks, and they ship our jobs overseas, and they screw over our families. And guess what? Congressman Desjardins came to Tennessee, got rich off government, went to government, and still getting rich off government. And my question is for you today, are you better off than you were a decade ago when you got elected?
Time. Mr. Meyer, 1 minute rebuttal.
Well, my snake oil salesman Democrat friend here keeps wanting to bang away on the Bible, although for some reason he wants to get after me for using the Bible. I've never once mentioned it. I don't do that at all. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm going to use rational thought, then I'm not going to come at you with the Bible. While I support and protect the saints, I'm not going to use the Bible in order to do it. And he wants to keep attacking me for my VA disability. Let me assure you, it was no giveaway. I was in the service. Everything that I receive, and it is nowhere near whatever it is you call 6-figure, I earned it. I earned it by being there. That was a contract signed with America's veterans. And the veterans are the ones who are they're being considered second and third class citizens by our socialized medical system, while it is that they're giving the best in the world to people who aren't from here, who just show up here and have no intention of becoming American citizens.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're moving on to our fourth question. Mr. Hale will be first. Should we replace the Affordable Care Act?
I want to go on something really quickly. Doug served his country honorably, and I am clear that he deserves that health care. But let me tell you, Doug says the Bible isn't rational. I'm surprised at that comment. I think God is the source of reason. I'm a Christian. God tells us that the nations, in the Gospel of St. Matthew 25, I can read it out verse by verse for you. God tells us that he will judge the nations on how they treat the sick, not just individuals, but the nations. I do think healthcare is a human right. That isn't socialism. That's pure Christianity. I think we need to go in that direction of a single-payer system. Doug doesn't support public schools. He thinks they should be privatized. He said they were the source of brainwashing and satanic ideas. Doug doesn't support public roads, evidently, or public infrastructure. Doug doesn't support the government at all. Congressman Desjardins is with him. Congressman Desjardins Doug talked about the veterans' health care. Doug's health care system isn't as good as it could be because Congressman Desjardins has a platinum plan that you paid for, that you and your family paid for, that $1.7 million salary that you gave him. You pay for it, and people like Doug aren't getting the health care they deserve. So for me, yes, we need to go further than the Affordable Care Act. Doug wants to take it away from you. That's incredible to me. 40,000 of you right now watching today have health care due to the Affordable Care Act. And Doug and Congressman Desjardins want to take it away from you while they have a very expensive government health care plan. We need to go towards single payer. Healthcare is a human right. That isn't socialism. That is, once again, pure Christianity. We are one of 3 countries in the world that doesn't have a single payer system, and we're losing for it. We're one of the most unhealthiest communities in this nation. Our people need access to healthcare. They need rural hospitals. I support pregnant women.
Time.
And they should have access to hospitals to deliver babies.
Mr. Meyer, 1 minute.
Why we should replace the medical system. I don't know that the word replace is actually accurate here. It is, in the end, it's a disaster. Let me remind you that the Constitution is there for one purpose, and that's to protect your rights, not to protect your health. Personal responsibility is up to the individual. When you hand over that personal responsibility, you end up in the middle of what it is that we're moving into with eugenicide. The eugenicists want to abort the children, and they want to do the same thing to the old folks who have become unable to be of any worth to society. These ideals are dangerous. You hand over your entire health rights over to some federal government that will choose it for you. If your friends are not in office, they will eliminate you. That's the way it works. That's the reality of the world in which we live in.
Time. Mr. Meyer, you'll be able to continue that with, should we replace the Affordable Care Act? 2 minutes.
It should be replaced. As a worker, I paid for my insurance years ago before we slid off into this socialist communist pipe dream. I want it to go back to what it was. If we deregulate and we say that you have to compete for the money of the people instead of carving up the United States and saying you get this and you get that, and you corporation over here, you get this, and we get back to the point to where it's a matter of competition rather than simply a rip-off of this major debacle, maybe so. But in the end, taking care of the health care of every single person in the universe, we don't have enough money. You saw the empty purse? We don't have the money. And our hospitals will look exactly the way their hospitals do. Dirty, nasty, and full of dead people.
Mr. Hale, 1 minute.
You know, Sheriff Meyer talks a lot about the Constitution, and I think it's interesting. You know what else wasn't in the Constitution? The military branch that he served in, the roads that protect us, the police force wasn't in the Constitution. Public schools, which he doesn't support, he wants to get rid of public schools, wasn't in the Constitution. What the issue is here is that Doug Meyer and Scott Desjardins have never read the Constitution. They quote it vociferously, but they've actually never read the darn thing. Here's the reality. He talked about the idea that our healthcare system would be dilapidated like, quote unquote, the other countries. I don't think Doug's gotten around. Have you looked at the hospitals here in the 4th Congressional District? Have you looked at what the status quo of Scott Desjardins Care has done for you and your community? Congressman Desjardins does not support rural hospitals. Under his reign, they have gone away. We have communities where pregnant women, I'm pro-life.
Time.
And they can't get access to a hospital near them.
Gentlemen, all right, we're going to be moving on to our 5th question. Mr. Meyer will start first. What is your position on illegal immigration? 2 minutes.
Regarding illegal immigration, they call it illegal immigration because it's illegal. I am for, this is a nation of laws. And it's when we throw everything away because it doesn't happen to fit the narrative, you end up with what it is that we're in the middle of right now. My ancestors were immigrants. They came here the way that it was supposed to have been done. I say that that's exactly what we should be doing in the future. As United States Congressman, America first and Americans foremost. As a congressman, my job is not to worry about what's going on in Mexico because of their corrupt government over there. My job is not to take in every single person in the universe who wants to come here and take part of the prosperity but doesn't want to become a citizen. In the end, this creates multiculturalism, and we get to the point to where we're being crushed underneath it as we are today. People in this country rioting, demand that we become like where it is that they came from. If it was so good, they would still be there.
Thank you. 1 minute, Mr. Hale.
Did you hear what my opponent just said? My opponent, who served in the United States military with people of color, with immigrants, with people of all ethnicities and way of life, he said that those people in the streets protesting violence against black men and women in this country want our country to look like where they came from. Folks, that is the definition, pure definition of racism. It's not dog whistling, it's just pure racism. What's going on in this country regards illegal immigration, illegal immigration's at the lowest levels it's been in a century. We have a community that has a record small amount of immigrants coming into it. The idea that they're flooding across the border and coming 700, 800 miles to Tennessee isn't true. These folks are talking so much about an illegal immigration problem that isn't present here in Tennessee.
Time.
I get 2 minutes. That was only one.
That was your rebuttal.
Okay.
Now you get to expound upon that.
I was having a lot of fun.
Well, and you can continue the fun.
I'm having fun. Are y'all having fun?
You can continue the fun. Mr. Hale, what is your position on illegal immigration?
I do not support illegal immigration. Let's continue forward with this, though. The reason that Doug Meyer and Scott Desjardins every 2 years throw up the Russian flag and the Mexican flag and say immigrants are flooding across the border is because Doug Meyer can't handle the fact that his broken ideology has record unemployment here in Tennessee. He can't handle the fact that his party has overseen the destruction of the rural way of life, of rural hospitals, of our values, of our way of life. So it's a cottage industry. It's old as the test of time. What they do is they scream about abortion. Doug doesn't want to do anything to stop abortion. Doug doesn't want to do a darn thing to stop abortion. I do. You want to stop abortion? Expand health care. Doug doesn't want to do anything to stop illegal immigration. He wants to run on it to get you upset and distract you from the real issue. Here's the real issue. You are getting screwed over by your government. Scott Desjardins has spent a decade in a swamp, and he's done nothing for you and your family. So what's he going to try to do? He's going to try to make you angry at your invisible enemy that doesn't exist. Do you know who you should be angry at, folks? Scott Desjardins. What he has done in Washington is crooked. He has fought for the wealthy, out-of-state elites who ship our jobs overseas while you and your family are living paycheck to paycheck. He is a man who just 3 weeks ago went and got himself a taxpayer-funded elective knee surgery during a pandemic instead of voting on a bill that could help you pay your bills, could help get you unemployment insurance because the government shut you down and shut your business down. Scott Desjardins says he's against government. He got rich off of it. All he's trying to do is stir up issues that are not affecting the rural Tennessee to talk up, because he doesn't want to talk about what he has not done in a decade of office and how he is actively, right now, using government money to screw over you and your family.
All right, Mr. Meyer, 1 minute rebuttal.
Question again?
The rebuttal to what is your position on illegal immigration? 1 minute rebuttal.
Because my opponent here decided that he would just go bunny trail and rant, typical with throwing a lot of rhetoric around, there's no substance to it. Much of what he has said, because you're viewing it on TV, you're just going to assume it's true. I expect that you will go look into this and find out for yourself. Illegal immigration, 25 million is what we think might be here. We don't know for a fact. I support the rule of law. I say that illegal immigration should remain illegal. If you want to come here and you want to do it right, do it the right way. The rest of the folks who are already here and have done so are proud to say that they did. We, again, are a nation of laws. Now, this affects people in the 4th District, not just Murfreesboro. This has nothing to do with racism. Every time that a Democrat starts losing, they scream racism or call me a racist.
Time. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we're going to move to our 6th question. Take a deep breath. We're going to start with Mr. Hale. As a member of Congress, how would you work with 434 other congressmen and women to forward your legislative agenda?
Well, good God Almighty, way better than the incumbent. You know what's the first thing that Congressman, you know what, Doug's going to agree with me on this one. Doug's going to agree with me on this. The first thing that Congressman Desjardins did when he took that oath he doesn't give a darn about, the one he hasn't paid attention to for a decade, the first thing he did is voted for a California liberal, Kevin McCarthy, to be Speaker of the House. If he was a true fighter for Tennessee values, why is he voting for that out-of-state liberal, Kevin McCarthy, to be Speaker of the House? It's because this. Congressman Desjardins has no friends in Washington. These scandals, I don't know if I mentioned these scandals, there's 3 of them. He dry-fired a gun next to the head of his ex-wife. He coerced her and mistresses into 3 abortions, and he illegally prescribed painkillers to a 3rd patient he was sleeping with. It makes him ineffective in Washington, and I actually have seen him operate in Washington. Doug is absolutely right. Congressman Desjardins is a rhino establishment Republican. All he does is he takes that liberal Kevin McCarthy's voting priorities, he takes a piece of notebook paper, he goes up there, he casts his votes, he goes home, he collects $1.7 million of your money. One thing you got to understand about legislative politics, it's competitive. You have to work together, but you also have to compete against 434 other members of Congress to ensure that you get what your community needs. Congressman Desjardins ain't done a darn thing. You know it. You've never seen the man. You don't know him. Doug at least gave you the time of day. I gave you the time of day. As a member of Congress, I will show up. I will fight for you and your family. I will get you the resources and make government work for you so that you can live the life that God intended for you, a life of freedom, of dignity, of equality, and liberty. But that requires showing up. Here's the reality, folks. You know me, and I know you. You don't know Congressman Desjardins, and he doesn't know you.
Time. Mr. Meyer, you have 1 minute rebuttal on this.
So the question again?
The question that you're rebuttal to is as a member of Congress, how will you work with 434 other congressmen and women to forward your legislative agenda?
Well, my slick-talking friend here uses rhetoric, and it's hard to keep up with it. Does it well. And he goes off on his bunny trails to the point that let's talk about the real issue. Are you going to go in there and adapt to all of the policies of the Pelosi's, of the Schiffs, the Nadlers? Or are you going to go in there and work with the Democrat establishment? Because, folks, you're seeing the results of what happens when you work with the Democratic. Or are you going to go in there and buck them? I will go in there and stand for the Constitution. My only purpose is the people of the 4th Congressional District and to save the Republic. We must keep it strong. We must keep the district strong. Everything else takes second seat behind that. Done.
All right, and we'll continue that, Mr. Meyer. Once again, you'll have 2 minutes on that.
Do I get a rebuttal? Sorry, was that his rebuttal?
That was his rebuttal.
Oh, I apologize.
You'll get a rebuttal on his
I'm
rebuttal.
sorry, Doug. I'm sorry. I was interrupting you.
Don't you worry.
I got excited. I got excited. I'm sorry, Doug.
2 minutes, Mr. Meyer. As a member of Congress, how will you work with 434 other congressmen and women to forward your legislative agenda?
I will work with those who work to support and defend America, the people, and the Constitution. If you support the Republic, I will work with you. If you work against it, I will work against you. Right now, there are a number of people that don't get the amount of press. I give you Thomas Massey from Kentucky's 4th Congressional District. They have bucked the entire establishment Republican system, and they have stood by the Constitution. They were originally hammered for having done so, and then on the backside of it, they have been lauded throughout the media. So if you support those things that keep the Republic strong, I will support it. If you go against it, I will come against you with all that I have. And in the end, you have to deal with real Republicans, real conservatives. You have to deal with rhinos. I will work with anybody that works toward those ends. And again, I will work against those who do not.
Mr. Hale, your turn.
I am shocked that Doug Meyer would lift up Thomas Massey. I agree with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who said in late March that Thomas Massey was a third-rate grandstander who was trying to hurt the American people by standing up against the bill that I guess Doug Meyer and Congressman Desjardins opposed. I think that the President of the United States is right. Thomas Massey is a third-rate grandstander, and so is Scott Desjardins. Look, and I'm also surprised that Doug didn't take the opportunity to denounce Scott Desjardins for voting for that California liberal, Kevin McCarthy. My loyalty is not to Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, to Donald Trump, or liberal Kevin McCarthy. He also cheated on his wife. It's well known. It's in public record. Congressman Desjardins would know anything about that. I support you and your family. I'm going to throw elbows in Washington because we need a fighter in Washington. Doug's a fighter. I give him that. Congressman Desjardins and Congressman Desjardins goes there, casts his liberal votes for Kevin McCarthy for Speaker, doesn't do a darn thing for you and your family, and goes home.
Time.
I will.
Time. All right, gentlemen, we fooled you. We've got one more question. There are no rebuttals, but this is an important one. Are you ready?
I'm excited.
All right. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer this question. We're going to start with Mr. Meyer. What can you do to make things better here in our district?
I don't know that I'm going to need all that time to answer it. One of the best things that you can do is get the government out of the way, get the government out of your business. People, if they're acting in their own self-interest, will thrive and prosper. We have suffered under decades and decades and decades of increasing amount of laws. If you get out of the people's way, they'll not only survive, but they'll thrive and prosper. Your freedoms are everything. Exercise your freedoms. Get up and do something. If you want to become a millionaire, work at it, do it. If you want to become well educated, you can still do it in this country. Those days are beginning to fade behind us. But I believe in the American people and the American Republic.
All right, Mr. Hale, what can you do to make things better here in our district?
I'll show up. My God, a decade in office, Congressman Desjardins hasn't held a town hall in my adult life. I'm getting some gray hair up here. Congressman Desjardins hasn't shown up in my adult life for you and your community. I will show up You can yell at me. You can spit on me. I think Doug said something about peeing on him. You can do whatever it takes, but I will show up for you and your family, and I will listen to you. But here's the most important thing. I'll fight for you. I'll get your granny her meds. I will ensure that our roads are paved. I will ensure that our hospitals are open. I'll ensure that pregnant women don't have to go 90 miles to deliver one of God's children. Folks, Congressman Desjardins does not fight for you. He does not show up. He goes to Washington, he votes for that California liberal, Kevin McCarthy, and then he goes home and gets an elective knee surgery. I am dedicated to showing up and fighting you for every day. You might think I'm a little bit over the top, but at least I'm here. At least I'm showing up. At least I'm listening. At least I'm fighting. Congressman Desjardins never has. God bless him. I don't know what happened, but the man is low energy. He is do nothing Desjardins, and Lord knows I will show up and make life better for you and your family.
Excellent job, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Now, this is it. Take a deep breath. It's time for your closing comments. It's been a very spirited discussion. Hopefully we'll have more in the future. Now, in 2 minutes or less, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Meyer, tell the viewers why they should vote for you.
We're in trouble. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Our nation is in trouble, and we're very close to the edge. If the Democrats get their way and the rhino establishment Republicans join them, the republic as we knew it is toast. It's over. I want you to live, I want your children to live in what it is that your grandparents got to be raised in. It was a good place, a decent place. Sure, it had its troubles, but Americans made it work. I want that to happen again. We are moving into an America that is as confused and all over the place as my opponent is here. He threw so much rhetoric at you and so much lack of substance being slung that it'll leave you walking away from it confused. It should be very simple. I want you to have your rights. I want you to have your freedoms. I will do everything in my power, including at risk to my own life, to ensure that that happens for you, for your children, and for your prosperity. That's what I want. Thank you.
Mr. Hale, in 2 minutes or less, tell the viewers why they should vote for you.
What Doug Meyer and Congressman Desjardins call rhetoric, I call the truth. I call facts. These are facts. Here's the facts. We have the highest unemployment rate in Tennessee since the Great Depression. That's Congressman Desjardins' economy. We have 100,000 dead Americans because Congressman Desjardins didn't show leadership in Washington. We have rural hospitals that are closing at record rates. Our schools, buildings, our infrastructure, our roads are crumbling. That's because of Scott Desjardins. I give Doug Meyer credit. He shows up. Congressman Desjardins doesn't. Doug Meyer is a fighter, and his supporters are fighters too. I don't agree with what Doug says about Muslims. I don't agree with what Doug says about public schools being satanic. I don't agree with the holy wars against Palestinians and Arabs. But I do agree with Doug on this. We have a congressman who doesn't show up, who doesn't fight for you and your family. I've spent my life standing up to the bullies and fighting for the forgotten. Not every Democrat likes me. In fact, a lot don't, because I'm beholden to no man and no woman. I'm beholden only to God, my family, and yours. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you're sick and tired of rhino establishment Republicans who have done nothing, have held up the Bible in one hand and denigrated everything it stands for in the other, if you like Doug Meyer on August 6th, I'm telling you, you will like me on November 3rd. I'm the one you're looking for. I will fight like hell to make life better for you and your family, and I'm humbly asking for your support.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, viewers, for watching today's Tennessee's 4th Congressional District Debate. Please remember, vote on August the 6th. Thank you.